Since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, Russia's territorial ambitions have been under the spotlight. From the Baltic to the Black Sea, the Kremlin has been making moves all over Europe. This power politics was born in 1991. At that time, 15 Soviet republics declared their independence amid the collapse of the USSR. But within the KGB, the USSR Secret Service, agents refused to accept this loss of influence. Instead, they set up a strategy to prevent these states from leaving the Russian orbit and joining the European Union. Their plan? To infiltrate the ethnic or Russian-speaking minorities in these new countries, stir up claims on their identity, and help them break away. It happened in Moldova in 1992, Georgia in 2008, and Ukraine in 2014. The same method was used every time. With the support of the Russian army, separatists create self-proclaimed republics that are not recognized by the international community. They bear mysterious names, such as the Donetsk People's Republic, the Moldovan Republic of Dniester, or the Autonomous Republic of Abkhazia. To find out what lies behind these phantom states, we set out for the other side of the Iron Curtain. In Transnistria, as well as in Abkhazia, many inhabitants live in nostalgia for the USSR. A journey through the Soviet glacis, the puppet countries that serve Russia's interests and destabilize Europe. Our investigation into the pro-Russian separatist regions begins in Moldova. In 1991, this former Soviet republic gained independence, but in 1992, civil war broke out in the east of the country. It pitted the Moldovan army against a Russian-speaking separatist movement, entirely created by the KGB and supported by the Russian army. After 4 months of fighting, a ceasefire was signed. The separatists won autonomy for Transnistria. 30 years later, 1,500 Russian soldiers are still deployed there. Since Transnistria is off-limits to journalists, we pass ourselves off as tourists. The border post is guarded by Russian FSB agents. 10 minutes later, we arrive in Tiraspol, the capital. Stalinist architecture, busts of Lenin, a monument celebrating the Red Army's victory over the Nazis. Soviet decorum is omnipresent, and one feels very close to Russia here.
It's Suvorov. He was the one who created the town.
Yulia is 31. She grew up here. The young woman studied languages.
I'm working remotely as a personal assistant with a Swiss company. Also, another part-time job, we just help companies to be on the first, on the top, on the list in search engine.
Like many young people here, Yulia has to reconcile her Russian-speaking culture with her desire for freedom and adventure. She lives with her brother, who owns an apartment in the suburbs of Tiraspol. Life changes, and so do projects, right? Yes. There's to tell the truth. I thought I might find a job in Chisinau. I miss working in a team. It's Friday, and like in most countries, Yulia is getting ready to go out with friends.
Oh, I'm preparing for a party. It's the party on the boat. It's kind of popular here. Music and nice view. Basically, I don't really put a lot of makeup, just lipstick, some, cheeks. That's it. And of course, dress.
Yulia goes out to buy a few bottles. She goes to Kvint, the largest manufacturer and distributor of liquor. Kvint produces 20 million bottles a year, a disproportionate figure for this territory of barely 500,000 inhabitants.
We're having a party tonight and we need alcohol for the boys and girls. What can I get? Give me 5 bottles of cognac, for example. And 5 bottles of champagne. I think that'll do, don't you?
Kvint alone accounts for 5% of Transnistria's GDP, exporting to 28 countries worldwide.
Champagne for girls and cognac for guys. Cognac. Tastes good. Cognac with cola.
For 10 bottles, Yulia pays 800 Transnistrian rubles, about 50 euros. The Transnistrian ruble is the enclave's official currency.
Plastic or? Yeah, it's plastic. Plastic money.
This currency has no value at all outside Transnistria's borders.
Спасибо большое.
This money will go straight into the coffers of Sheriff, a powerful conglomerate that controls 40% of the enclave's economy. In addition to a monopoly on alcohol production, Sheriff owns a caviar factory, supermarkets, banks and gas stations. The company also owns Transnistria's only private TV station and a soccer club, FC Sheriff Tiraspol. Viktor Gushan, a 59-year-old oligarch, is the face at the head of this holding company. He's a man of the shadows. This photo is one of a few images released to the public. A former KGB agent, he is seen here on a separatist armored vehicle, lending them a hand in 1992. Since then, he has become the Kremlin's right-hand man, the one Moscow relies on to keep Transnistria under control. On the banks of the Dniester River, Yulia meets up with her friends. For 25 Transnistrian rubles, or €1.80 per person, they can treat themselves to an hour's boat ride.
Girls, grab some cups and we'll fill them up. Please open the champagne and serve the girls.
Yulia's friends are between 24 and 34 years old, working as tourist guides, agronomists, pharmacists, designers and saleswomen. They often have a series of small jobs.
Tell him my job has nothing to do with dancing and that I work at a gas station.
25-year-old Andrei is an electrical engineer. As he can't find a job in his field, he works as a gas station attendant, earning €350 a month.
I work for the Sheriff Company. Sheriff is... Well, if you don't know what it is, there's a soccer team called Sheriff too. And it's all Sheriff. It's all the same company.
Sheriff offers slightly above average salaries, but for Andrei that's barely enough.
If you want a comfortable life, you need €500 a month. Yes, at least €500. You know, there really aren't many good jobs in Transnistria.
Vadim, 32, is a former professional dancer. Since the invasion of Transnistria's neighbor, Ukraine, he's worried about the future.
I won't speak about the politics things, but it's not quiet here right now, so we are afraid about World War III. A little bit stressful, so we are ready all the time.
What does it mean to be ready?
Ready to move.
So you mean that you have one bag with
Leave everything.
Every year, 1/3 of 18 to 29-year-olds leave the separatist republic to study or work abroad. Since its creation 30 years ago, Transnistria has lost 40% of its population, but here, it's fashionable to say you love your country.
I love my country. I love it. I love my country. I love it.
In this pro-Russian enclave, it is unthinkable to question Transnistria's autonomy, let alone to criticize the government. Behind this sanitized decor lies an authoritarian state. No free press, no opposition, and a president elected with 87% of the vote. In the Supreme Soviet, half of the 33 deputies hold high-level positions with sheriff. The famous enterprise headed by former KGB officer Viktor Gushan. Tiraspol, the capital, is home to most of the enclave's industrial plants. It's a fairly wealthy modern city. The same cannot be said of the countryside, which is in poverty. These areas have gradually emptied out since the fall of the USSR, and people live mainly off agriculture.
We're going to my parents' place. I'm very close with my parents, so it's just small farm for my parents, so we could eat healthy food. It's nice to come back sometimes.
Yulia's village is 10 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Krasnesko has 1,800 inhabitants, 1,000 less than 10 years ago. Twice a month, Yulia comes to visit her parents. This is where she grew up, surrounded by farm animals. Her parents live off a plot of land and a few animals.
Looks like they are hungry, but they have food here. These all goats, they're growing so fast. Yeah. It's just my friends, you know, it's a part of our family now.
2 goats and 2 cows are their only means of subsistence.
That's a dairy cow. We've got 2 of them, and one's expecting GA calf. The milk is for our family.
Just for our family.
Edik, her father, has been unemployed since 2016. For him, the good old days go back to the USSR, when there was work for everyone, from the age of 12.
We were taken to work in cars and trucks. It was fun. People sang along the road on their way to work.
There were 2 factories nearby. One was a poultry packing plant, and the other an armaments factory. Most importantly, there was a kolkhoz, which employed 2,000 people.
You need to turn right here. Our kolkhoz was worth $1 million back then.
A kolkhoz is a kind of state agricultural cooperative. They were created from 1928 throughout the entire USSR, following the collectivization of land. The one in Krasnesko covered 3,200 hectares.
These are the warehouses.
Edik and his wife were employed here as construction workers.
They brought in pesticides, fertilizers, everything was over there. There were also seeds, selections of wheat and corn. They treated them and we sowed them in the fields.
Edik started working here when he was 17. He was paid with grain from the harvest and 180 Soviet rubles a month. When the kolkhoz closed in 1991, a whole way of life disappeared.
We were practically all friends. Of course, we're all nostalgic. We lived really well, the government cared about us. But it's not like that anymore. We're on our own now.
Edik isn't the only one in his village who's nostalgic for the Soviet era. Every year on the 25th of March, the villagers gather to commemorate the liberation of Krasnesko in 1944 by Stalin's troops.
All the best for the family, good health for our village and our home Transnistria.
The teenagers perform Soviet dances to the crowd of villagers gathered in the village square. For the occasion, the boys are dressed in Red Army uniforms.
Bring the flag of the Moldavian Republic of Transnistria and the banner of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
The trauma of the Nazi occupation between 1941 and 1944 is still very much alive in Transnistria. Nikolai, a former Red Army lieutenant colonel, reminds the villagers of the horrors of the early days of the occupation. Yet he has no memory of them. He was just 1 year old in 1941.
At the beginning of the war, the Germans came here. They were looking for communists and supporters of Soviet power. They caught them brutally, threw them on the ground and shot them. They caught them brutally. Then they left.
At the end of the ceremony, Nikolai and Yulia take a short detour to the village's only convenience store.
I'm no longer a heavy drinker, but I do drink a little.
He makes a point of toasting and offering her a glass of cognac. From Kvint, of course.
She's cold, but she doesn't want any. She's a big girl and she doesn't want any.
After a few drinks, Nikolai is quickly caught up in his obsessions. He can't resist giving Yulia a little lecture in geopolitics, at least his version of the story.
Do I miss the Soviet Union? Yes, more than anyone else in the world.
You regret very much.
You've raised the subject that decided the fate not only of the Russian people, but of the whole world. For as long as the Soviet Union existed, it was calm and peaceful all over the world. Were there wars in Soviet times, locally or abroad? There was no reason for war, because the USSR dampened down the ardor of anyone who wanted to fight. And now they've given the Americans a free hand. As long as America fights for supremacy, war will never end on the planet.
In Nikolai's black and white worldview, Russia is the great peacemaker and the United States is the devil, responsible for all conflicts.
Goodbye and thank you.
Thank you.
How many children do you have?
None.
Oh, you will, don't worry. Yes, I know. You really are a happy man. She's my daughter. How do you know she's your daughter? We have the same nose. Ah, the nose. It's the DNA. I took a DNA test a long time ago. Very well. Goodbye.
The love of the Transnistrian population for Russia is not just explained by the military protection it offers, but also by its unwavering economic support of the enclave. Every year, Moscow supplies 500 million euros worth of gas to the separatist republic. This gas is used to produce electricity in Transnistria, which is then sold to Moldova. Moldova is thus entirely dependent on Transnistria for energy. And every time Moldova makes a move towards the European Union, Russia shuts down the pipeline.
Спасибо, папа. Спасибо большое.
In Yulia's family, they're very grateful to the Russian big brother.
Tell him we live thanks to Russia. If Russia didn't protect us, what would it be like here? Gas, fuel, electricity. All energy resources are much cheaper here.
Convinced by Russian propaganda that their neighbours want to invade the area, Edik and his wife have only one wish: to rejoin the Russian Federation.
We're waiting to become part of Russia. People have been waiting for a long time. They're even asking Russia to take us back so that no one, not even the Romanians, can invade us. And if they want to come here with weapons to destroy us, whether it's Nazi-sympathizing Ukrainians or Romanians, no. We don't want that. We just want to live, to sit at the table with one another and talk peacefully, to sit at the table with one another and talk peacefully. That's it. Cheers.
Vladimir Putin's political ambition is to bring the populations of neighbouring countries into the Russian fold. And Moldova is not the only country to bear the brunt of this strategy of regional destabilization. For the past 15 years, Russia has occupied 1/5 of the territory of another former Soviet republic, Georgia. In this small Caucasus country, tensions rose in the summer of 2008. They pitted separatists from two pro-Russian regions, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, against the Georgian army. Moscow sent its tanks to support the separatists, who were supported by the FSB. After 5 days of blitzkrieg, a ceasefire was signed. Russia recognized the independence of Abkhazia and South Ossetia and set up military bases there. Today, this new border between Abkhazia and Georgia is a zone of tension, which is closely guarded.
Zulu base, this is Echo 1 with message over.
Zita is a policewoman. She works for the European Union.
Echo 1 still mobile to Golf 12, Golf 12 over.
Zita and her colleagues have a mission: to ensure that the autonomous republic, protected by Moscow, is not preparing any hostile action.
As a monitor, I'm here to patrolling along the ABL, observing the area, discovering new borderization equipment.
Abkhazia is just across the river. Barbed wire, watchtowers. The dividing line is protected by agents of the FSB, the Russian security services. So as she approaches, Zita is always on her guard.
Rules is all the time to park the cars facing not to the ABL. If something happens, you just can go. You don't need to, like, U-turn.
And what could happen?
I knew it. I was like, why did I mention it? Never know. But you have to be prepared for everything. So now we're gonna check that.
Okay.
Over there, there is the fence, but we never cross that river.
If we cross the river, we might be detained by the Russian border guards over there. Because they see us, if they see us and we are crossing, they will come at us.
So I will just observe now, checking if they made any changes.
All right.
Along with her colleagues, Zita checks if the Russians are stealing territory. At the top of the watchtower, the camera movements indicate that FSB agents are watching us.
They don't really want us to film them or to take a picture of them, so it's very rare to see them.
So, and now on the left side we can see that OP operation post, and when we have a closer look to it, we will see that's the dummy inside. So that's what Russians normally do. They put some dummy inside just to pretend that someone is inside and watching us or looking at us.
These decoys are used to intimidate opponents and civilians trying to cross the border illegally. Behind this new Iron Curtain lies one of the Caucasus' best-kept secrets, a green region with a pleasant climate, ideally situated on the shores of the Black Sea. Every year, Abkhazia attracts 1.5 million visitors. But they are only Russians. They are the only foreigners allowed to visit the enclave.
It's nice, isn't it? I think nothing can spoil our happiness.
Dmitry and Anastasia are 27 and 24. They live in Moscow and both work in the IT security sector.
It's a pity that the vacations are coming to an end and that they can't last forever. Or we could move here and work remotely. I don't know if it's possible to work remotely from here. Because of the internet connection.
The couple decided to treat themselves to a few days' vacation in Gagra, Abkhazia's famous Riviera. Already in Soviet times, this was a favorite destination of communist leaders and workers looking to recharge their batteries. Anastasia and Dmitry don't really feel out of place here. In theory, Abkhazia isn't in Russia, but in practice, it's as if it were. The ruble is the official currency, and Russian is one of the enclave's 2 languages.
Everything here is written in Russian. For a Russian speaker, there's really no problem visiting these places. Just take a step to the side.
After the photo shoot in front of the colonnades, off we go to the other must-see for tourists, this zoo. It was built next to a primatology institute, which opened a century ago. Soviet scientists tested vaccines on monkeys. In the 1980s, the monkeys trained here were even sent into space. A statue pays tribute to them.
Look, there's an inscription over there. The world's first monument to monkeys. Is this what it says? Poliomyelitis, yellow fever, typhus, tick-borne encephalitis. It's amazing. They've helped us so much. Yes, we've tested so many medicines on them, you mean?
Today, the center no longer sends monkeys into space, but it still employs scientists studying gerontology. To round off their stay in Abkhazia, Dmitry and Anastasia opted for the unmissable home-cooked meal. They're going to discover traditional Abkhazian culture, the majority ethnic group here, and the one that Russian authorities want to promote and favor to the detriment of the Georgians.
This is a purely Abkhazian village, with no mixing whatsoever. We're not going to offer you any special dishes today, but we'll be delighted to serve you some traditional Abkhazian dishes.
This Abkhaz family lives comfortably thanks to tourism, but mostly thanks to the financial aid they receive from the Russian state. Here, 2/3 of pensions and civil servants' salaries are generously paid by Moscow.
Thanks to Russia, to the Russian government, we receive a pension. That's how we survive. I can't say we live in poverty. Some families in the whole of Abkhazia may live below the average, but they really help us. They help us a lot. They send us humanitarian aid.
At the same time as Russia buys the support of the Abkhaz population, it discriminates against Georgians. The 45,000 people who live in Abkhazia are concentrated in Gali, a district located along the borderline. They are not entitled to vote. They need passes to move around and can be expropriated at any time. Since September 2022, Their language, Georgian, has not even been taught in schools. Only Abkhazian and Russian are. Redzo, a resident of Gali, agreed to testify.
Of course, it's ethnic cleansing. If one day we no longer speak Georgian, if we no longer have Georgian schools, as then the Georgian community will no longer exist. What will become of us? Those who stay must obey. They have to speak Russian. This is ethnic cleansing. We're going to disappear.
Redzo is bitter about Russia's tightening grip on the territory. For him, the Russian presence in Abkhazia serves above all to prevent Georgia's emancipation.
Russia does not want our integration into Europe. Russia dislikes the idea of Georgia joining the European Union because Georgia aims to defend human rights, justice and the rule of law. As Russia, on the other hand, is trying to restore the Soviet Union and to re-establish a centralized power, the Russia is fighting against the clock. It doesn't want a civilized world on its doorstep.
On the Georgian side, the population has been worried since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They fear that Georgia will be the next country on the list. Today, in the capital, Tbilisi, the crowd came to affirm their desire to join the European Union. At their head is Elen Koshtaria, a pro-European politician.
And Georgian people wanting the European Union, and we deserve the European Union. Russia can use anything and everything. Russia doesn't need any pretext. It can be Abkhazia, it can be Ossetia, anything. So our goal is not to speculate what they can do. Our goal is to prepare to make sure they cannot do it.
In March 2022, former Soviet Republic Georgia officially applied for membership of the European Union. While the Commission has so far issued an unfavorable opinion, it has granted candidate status to another country, which has also long been coveted by Russia, Ukraine. As in Moldova and Georgia, Russia has attacked Ukraine using the method developed by the KGB in 1991, and which Vladimir Putin, the former spy, applies to the letter. In 2014, to prevent Ukraine from moving closer to the European Union, the FSB, Russia's security services, supported Russian-speaking separatist movements in the Donbass. Two regions proclaimed independence, the Donetsk and the Lugansk People's Republics. War broke out between the separatists and the Kiev army. In February 2022, Vladimir Putin took the next step. He threatened genocide against the Russian-speaking separatist populations of Donbass.
I have decided to carry out a special military operation.
He invaded Ukraine. 6 months later, after organizing bogus referendums, he triumphantly announced the annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions to Russia.
Сегодня мы подписываем договоры о принятии в состав России Донецкой Народной Республики, Луганской Народной Республики.
Today, we are signing treaties admitting the republics of Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson to Russia. Their inhabitants are now our citizens, and so they will be forever.
But in these newly conquered regions, the master of the Kremlin faces fierce resistance. Ukrainians refuse to fall back under the Russian yoke. In May 2022, we went to the front line, to the bombed-out villages. Malinovka, which had a population of 600 before the war, was occupied by the Russian army for 2 weeks. The village has just been liberated by the Ukrainian army. Alexei and Maxim are volunteers for the Territorial Defense Forces. They are responsible for supplying the front line. They also check if the inhabitants who haven't fled need anything. The day before, the Russians shelled the village again. A shell fell on the house next to this couple's.
It hit the house and destroyed the roof. They won't come back into the village. No. If they do, I'll chop their eyes into little pieces. I'm so angry with these butchers. We had a good life and then, boom, all of a sudden, war breaks out. You won't let them do it. No, we're pushing them back. They thought Ukraine was stupid, that Ukraine was weak.
Maxim and Alexei come from a town that is now in the occupied zone. Their battalion commander, Andriy, was a town councillor there. They all still have family there. For fear of reprisals, they have asked to remain anonymous.
60% of the soldiers have family members in the occupied territories. Sometimes these families are taken hostage. The enemy then demands that the soldiers surrender or start feeding them information. Unfortunately, we had this situation with one of our soldiers from the village of Chkalovo. But his father was killed and his mother beaten to death. Pass me my helmet, please.
To get to the front line, we have to pass through the village of Potolka. For the past 10 days, it has been constantly shelled by Russian artillery.
This is where the shelling is heaviest, here in the center of the village. I'm going to drive fast now, because they can strike any minute. They want to inflict maximum damage on civilians to force them to leave. That way, they know no one will ever come back.
For Andriy, the objective is more political than military.
If there's nobody left in Ukraine, Ukraine will be weaker and won't be able to turn its economy around. That's their main goal. They're afraid of an independent Ukraine joining Europe.
They are afraid of rich, strong.
We arrive at Sector 0 on the front line, in one of the outposts commanded by Andriy. 6 volunteers live here permanently. Their mission? To guard the perimeter and prevent a Russian breakthrough.
Attention everyone, 2 more enemy planes are coming from Melitopol. They're heading north.
Here, artillery duels are almost constant. In the 36 hours we've been at this outpost, we've counted over 500 explosions.
Oh my God, yes. They're hitting over there to the right. You know what I mean? Damn! There they go again. The field just behind the village.
Before the war, these men were farmers in the area. Their families left for the safety of the free zones. They testify without fear, openly.
We're all neighbors, you know. We live next door to one another. We grew up together. And with this guy too, look at him. Look at this gentleman. They wanted to separate us. They wanted to divide us. But in fact, it had the opposite effect. They unified the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian nation. And now it's as if we're all part of the same organism.
Their life in the middle of the woods, in trenches and makeshift shelters, is punctuated by the echo of bombardments. The fear of being spotted by drones is constant.
Can you show me inside? Yes, of course.
If their position is spotted, this shelter is their only chance of survival.
This can protect us if they start firing Grad missiles. We used hooks to hold the logs together and covered them with plastic, then earth. Next, we'll put the branches back, then camouflage netting. We'll do that way. The drones won't be able to spot us.
Despite the bombardments, Ukrainian farmers continue to work their fields as if nothing had happened.
If you look up there, there's a tractor. There's a tractor working in the fields. He's fighting, sowing under the bombs and the mined fields. It's hard to explain this. It's part of our mentality. It has to be done to feed the country. We have to grow grain, bake bread and kill the enemy. We have to feed our cattle and pigs, and our fields are here. Everything comes from here. We live off these fields. We come from this black land, you see.
Farmers are indeed essential to the war effort. It's 6 a.m. on the outskirts of the town of Zaporizhia, 40 kilometers from the front line. Oleg, 53, is about to catch the shuttle bus to work. He's been a farmhand for 16 years, but the war has turned his life upside down.
It's crazy at the gas stations. There's hardly any gas left. Some people have been waiting in line for 3 days. I've got a business license, so I can buy it, but no more than 10 liters a day.
Russian strikes on oil refineries have led to a shortage and a surge in pricing, over 30% in less than a week.
The price of a litre might go up to €150 now.
On the way, the vehicle slaloms between anti-tank blocks. They have been placed there to slow down the Russian tanks. After half an hour's drive, Oleg arrives at his place of work, one of the largest grain farms in the region, spreading over 9,000 hectares. Alexander, the farm manager, has about 40 farm workers under his command. Since the invasion, he starts his mornings by making sure that his employees, who live close to the front line, are safe and sound.
Планы тогда наши на сегодня по обработке. Да. Ну что, сегодня планы будем продолжать на сегодня.
Hello. So, how are things at home? Quiet today. Not too much shooting. Okay, well, are you coming to work then? Seeding starts today. We'll be waiting for you. See you soon. Everyone's here except for the 5 on the front line.
The 5 mechanics of the farm have all been mobilized for tank maintenance. Alexander is short-staffed, and the war has delayed the start of planting.
I wanted to remind you all of the situation. This year, the sowing season will be twice as short. So, you see, the success of our business depends solely on us.
For Oleg, they have to work faster now, especially as there's a curfew between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Before the war, there were 2 farm workers in every heavy tractor like this. Before the war, there were 2 farm workers in every heavy tractor like this.
Sewing with your headlights on means becoming a target for the Russian Air Force.
Today, has it become dangerous to work, to sew? Of course it's dangerous. The other day, we saw a missile shot down by our air defense. The Russian fascists don't even know where they're shooting. They say they're only targeting military units, but they're hitting everyone, every infrastructure, in villages and cities alike.
On the day we shot this, the warehouse of a farm in the same region was destroyed by a Russian missile. According to the Ukrainian government, 70% of Russian strikes target civilian areas. But farming isn't the only problem facing Ukrainian grain growers. They are also having great difficulty exporting their crops.
Come on, Anatolich. Let's go and check the quality of the grain here. We need to examine and aerate it regularly, because we don't know how long we're going to have to store it. There's no room for the next harvest. We can't store anything else here.
Storage and export problems are causing tension on the international market. 26 countries depend on Ukraine and Russia for their grain supplies. In Ukraine too, the effects are beginning to be felt.
We are witnessing the beginning of a food crisis, not only in the country, but perhaps even worldwide. This war is a threat to everyone, and that's what our so-called brothers, at least that's what they call themselves, are doing to us. It's inhuman.
The risk of food shortages reminds Ukrainians of a traumatic episode in their recent history. Holodomor, the Great Famine. In 1932 and 1933, Stalin had Ukrainian peasants' crops confiscated as punishment for their opposition to land collectivization. The famine, organized by the regime, killed between 3 and 5 million people. This worries the local population, who now see their grains stolen and sent by the truckload to Russia. They are then shipped to countries that are friends to Moscow, such as Syria and Burkina Faso. As part of its conquest strategy, Russia is also depriving Ukraine of the infrastructure it needs to boost its economy. It is seizing ports, iron and coal mines, as well as steelworks. Moscow controls the separatist territories through propaganda and repression. Opponents are locked up in secret prisons. In Donetsk, over 1,000 of them are said to have been held in the Izolatsiya prison. Stanislav, a Ukrainian journalist, spent over 2 years there.
I was arrested on May 11, 2017. It was on the national holiday of the DNR, the Donetsk People's Republic. People dressed as civilians arrived. They took my papers, handcuffed me and put me in a car that was parked nearby. They put a bag over my head and took me to a place called the Ministry of State Security. After 30 minutes, I was taken into the next room, and they started torturing me by electrocution to make me confess that I was a Ukrainian spy.
Under duress, Stanislav signed a forced confession. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. During his years in prison, Stanislav was instrumentalized by Russian propaganda.
Hello, this is Sladkov Plus.
In 2018, he was interviewed by this former soldier, now a correspondent, for Rossiya 24, a Kremlin-funded television station.
This man was brought here in handcuffs. They have been removed for the interview.
Stanislav is forced to present himself to millions of viewers as a Ukrainian spy who has just written a novel about his double life.
What percentage of this novel, Sketches, is true? Is it an autobiography? Or is it all about your espionage activities? Yes, 100%. That is, you told the actual truth. Yes.
He serves his sentence at Izolatsya, the former factory where enemies of the people are held.
That big building there is the prisoners' cells and cellars where I spent the first few months. The building next to it is the refectory and the special cellar where people are tortured. It's a modern concentration camp, where inmates were treated like slaves, doing whatever they were told.
Izolatsya was run by Lieutenant Palich, whom the prisoners nicknamed Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. He subjected them to physical, sexual, and psychological torture.
Palich has special methods for pressuring prisoners who are in couples. Those who are husband and wife or cohabiting partners. I was in cell 4 with a man whose girlfriend was in the next cell 3. Palich had put the man in my cell on purpose, and so that he would understand that right next door was his girlfriend, and to whom he could do whatever he wanted.
After 28 months in captivity, Stanislav was finally released as part of a prisoner exchange. At least 7 other prisons of the same type are still active in the Donbass. These detention centers have become a gloomy symbol of what Ukraine could become under Russian domination. All the more reason to strengthen the tenacity of the Ukrainian people, who have been fighting their bellicose neighbor since 2014.